How's it going? Andrew here, and welcome to episode 4 of Sketch Endeavor. Now, if you're new here and you're new to my channel, let me take a quick minute to explain what Sketch Endeavor is all about. You see, drawing and painting go hand in hand, and if we have a lacking in our drawing ability, that ultimately is going to impact and affect what we can turn out at the easel. So here, this is my attempt to put that daily habit of drawing and just make that a commitment to ultimately try and raise my painting ability. I didn't dedicate enough time to drawing over my career, and consequently that discipline just fell by the wayside. And I thought that that would inevitably impact my paintings, and it certainly did in my opinion. So here I'm trying to elevate that painting ability by having that daily habit of drawing. Now we're 4 episodes in now, and so I'm going to be talking to you over the course of this episode about some of the things that have come up over the last couple of weeks. I'm going to be answering some of your questions, so let's jump into it. Episode 4 of Sketch Endeavor. Now, over the last several weeks, I've really been focusing on detailing my drawings and taking a lot of time with each and every one, and I was getting further and further away from the sketch aspect of Sketch Endeavor. So I thought here what I'd try and do is do a drawing a little bit more quickly, and here I'm focusing on an idea that's been rattling around in my head for a long while. I wanted to draw these ruins that are found in the town where I live in Lawrence, in the South Island of New Zealand. These are the ruins of an old brewery, and I wanted to put these horses in front of the brewery. Now, this brewery was called the Black Horse Brewery, so I thought it'd be a really cool painting to add these two images together and come up with something that was kind of evoking that historical aspect and at the same time having these really cool horses in the foreground. I thought it'd be pretty neat. So I started sketching out the idea as I saw it in my head, and I was liking where these two different elements were going. But I thought once I had a plan of sorts here, just a composition knocked out in the sketchbook, then I could go about making a more detailed rendering. Now, a sketch like this doesn't take me too long. I'm probably in it for about an hour at the most, and now I feel perfectly fine to get on with a final version. This was something that was missing from my previous drawings. So here I'm working on Dreadnought Gray, Canford card, and this really nice gray paper I think will allow me to show more of a tonal aspect in the drawing. My darkest darks are going to show up on that paper, as well as my lighter highlights when I go ahead and knock those in with a white charcoal pencil. Now, I've really enjoyed reading your emails and your messages through social media in response to this Sketch Endeavor challenge, and one question that I've received quite a lot is, hey Andrew, do you get burned out or do you fizzle out at any point? And recently, I must admit, yes, I have. Sometimes life gets in the way. And one of the things that I tried to set up right at the outset was just committing to this daily habit. And I was really forcing myself to do this even when it seemed inconvenient. But sometimes life just seems to be a bit louder, and things that I have to attend to just seem to take the forefront. And consequently, my Sketch Endeavor time, I had missed several days over the last few weeks. I was traveling up to the North Island for a commission, but also other projects and other things seemed to get in the way. So this is the idea behind Sketch Endeavor. As much as we want to try and make this a daily habit, sometimes things are going to come up. And I think it's important not to beat ourselves up if we happen to miss that time. As long as we just try and encourage ourselves, gently persuade ourselves to get back into it and get back on that horse as soon as we can, and just not take it too hard, not take it too seriously. Eventually, the days that we miss will get fewer and fewer and fewer, and the days that we show up will get more and more and more until eventually it's near 100%. But hey, nobody's perfect. And if in a perfect world, maybe I would get every day in, but I'm not going to lose any sleep if I happen to miss a couple of days. Besides, the reason that I missed those few days, I was doing something really cool anyway, so I'm not that worried about it. But I think in the long run, the results will show through, and that commitment that I've made will show through. It's all about the commitment that we're making to ourselves. It doesn't really matter what anybody else is doing, so long as we show up. It's been really amazing to see how many other people, though, have shown up and joined in this Sketch Endeavor challenge. Shout out to Terizzle, who said, back to basics and loving it. Let's see how much I can improve in 10,000 hours. Way to go, Terizzle. Fantastic drawings and fantastic work to everybody else who's been using that hashtag Sketch Endeavor. You know, I'm really loving where this drawing is going. I've really enjoyed this particular subject. I just need those horses to be in front of this ruin. So I'm going to do an anatomical study of one of the main characters for this painting, and I do intend to make this into a painting, but I need to really understand that subject a little bit better. So I go about making a rendering now of the horse. Having already done a rough sketch, I know kind of the position that I want it to be in, and of course I've got my photographic reference handy, and that is also helping me through the process. I'm really loving that Canford Dreadnought gray paper because of what it's doing tonally with the drawing. I'm able to knock in this really dark tone, but also have that lighter tone as I've already discussed. But here what I'm doing is trying to go even deeper with that dark tone by now using some charcoal pencils. And I'm really loving these. These are Peel and Sketch charcoal pencils by Generals, and I'm using 3 different grades: hard, medium, and soft, which is giving me some variation. Now, just a quick note on charcoal. The charcoal is not compatible with graphite. So if I do use graphite in a drawing like this, it's only for construction lines. Charcoal does not want to lay down over the top of graphite at all. So we must be careful from the outset and make sure we don't have very much of that graphite down if we want to go ahead and knock in some of that darker charcoal tone. And of course, I'm leaving those empty spaces nice and free so that I can knock in some highlights using a General's white charcoal pencil. Now I've got my drawing of the old brewery and I'm really happy with the way that came out. And I also have this drawing of the horse, and I want to put those 2 things together to make a really cool composition that hits on that initial idea that I had. But before I show you how I'm going to do that, let me take a quick minute and tell you about this video sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes covering dozens of creative and entrepreneurial skills. Premium membership gives you unlimited access so you can join the classes and the communities that are just right for you. Whether you want to fuel your curiosity, your creativity, or even your career, Skillshare is the perfect place to keep you learning and thriving. Now, personally, I love using Skillshare because I'm always learning something new. It's important for me to stay on top of my game, not only as an artist, but also as a YouTuber and a filmmaker. And so I'm constantly learning new skills and learning new things that I can pour into my creative journey. Now, I've done a little bit with digital filmmaking and I've been brushing up on my skills there, taking a class by Jordi Vanderput from Belgium, and that has been really informative. But I've also been brushing up on my digital painting with a guy named Jonas de Roo, and I found this to be amazingly informative, and this will help me with my compositions and will really help push my paintings even further. Now, Skillshare is also incredibly affordable, especially when compared to in-person classes and workshops, which can end up costing a lot of money. But an annual subscription with Skillshare ends up costing you less than $10 a month. Now, because Skillshare is sponsoring this video, you can sign up with that link in the description down below and get yourself a free 2-month trial. Now, just a quick note on the sponsors that I work with for my YouTube channel. I will only work with sponsors who have a product that I actually use. It has to be something that I'm actively using and is helping me in my creative journey. I would hate to lead you astray by promoting something that I didn't believe in. And that's why I'm so pleased to be partnered with Skillshare and tell you about this great product. So again, take advantage of that fantastic offer by clicking the link in the description down below. And a big thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now, I've got my drawing of the ruin and I've got the horse, and I want to put these 2 things together and create a really cool composition. And one of my favorite ways for doing this is actually using Photoshop. So I've imported these images here into Photoshop. Let's manipulate them and move them around and see what kind of result we can come up with. So this is going to be pretty simple. Here's the drawing right here, and I simply want to place a horse, maybe two, on top of this composition. So if I go ahead and just paste that in, now I've got this pretty much where I want it within the composition. But if I decide I want to move this sucker, I can move this around anywhere within the image. I can even change the scale here. If I decide he needs to be smaller in relation to the ruin, then I can simply do that. No problem at all. Now also, this can really help if I decide I want a second animal. And here, I do have one that I prepared earlier. Let's go ahead and shift this one around. And I can compose and move these elements around independent of each other and come up with something that I really like. And this happens to be just a little bit faster than having to draw it by hand. From here, I would go ahead and use this as reference material to inform a bigger painting. Now, I'm doing that all the time with compositions, importing images, shifting things around, and then that will give me ideas to be able to take to the easel and put up onto a much bigger canvas. And I've had emails from people and some questions in relation to the digital medium, and people are kind of concerned, is it cheating? Well, in my personal opinion, no, not at all. So long as I'm the generator of these images, I don't find it cheating at all. I'm simply taking things and being inspired and then creating something new. The thing I try to avoid when going digital is I try to avoid tracing anything. So it has to be something that I've drawn, which then also leads to another question which I've got quite a lot, which is, can we draw digitally for Sketch Endeavor? And I say, yes, absolutely. Look, let's try not to put too many rules around this thing. Let's just make this about getting creative and about putting in a daily habit of drawing. That's the main point of Sketch Endeavor. Now, a huge shout out to Zoltan Pogoni, and I hope I've pronounced your name right, but Zoltan's been using that Sketch Endeavor hashtag, and I've just loved seeing his drawings come up on that. And they're all digital, which is amazing. And he's done some really great drawings of birds that are just full of character. So again, let's make this about creativity and about the daily habit of drawing and not have so many rules around this thing. If you want to draw digitally, go for it. If it's pencils in the sketchbook, go for it. If it's markers on newsprint, go for it. Whatever works for you. Just get stuck into it. That's the main thing. Now my head is just bursting with ideas, so I'm going to get on to the next composition inspired by a recent hike in the New Zealand mountains. I'm going to kick things off once again in the spiral-bound sketchbook, and here I'm going to make several thumbnail sketches so that I can arrive on a pleasing arrangement and a really solid composition. I've got this idea from a recent hike up the Glacier Burn Trail, which is just outside Glenorchy in the South Island of New Zealand. Here, I'm taking about 15 minutes for every one of these little sketches, and I'm thinking about my tone and my major shapes. Now for a sketch like this, I'm using just a 2B pencil for the most part. I might knock in some construction lines with an H, and then if I need some darker tone, I might use a 4B. But if I'm getting too complicated, it's probably a little bit too labored for this type of exercise. What I'm trying to do here is just sketch something out really quickly, try some different arrangements, and arrive at a pleasing composition. And once I have that, then I'll go ahead and make that into a final detailed drawing. Now you'll notice that each one of these drawings varies slightly from the previous one. I'm making slight adjustments, tiny little alterations. Before I invest the time in a bigger drawing or a bigger painting, it's always wise to have some sort of plan before carrying on. This saves us from abortive work. Now, a buddy of mine made these really cool golden ratio proportional dividers for me, and here I'm using this to apply the golden ratio to this drawing to put these focal points at key intersections within the painting to really draw the eye. Now, I got another question over email from someone who asked, do I have to finish the sketch within the sitting? No, absolutely not. The drawing that you're about to see took place over several sittings. In fact, I spent about 12 hours all up on this one drawing. So I think whatever works for you. For me, I wanted to do something really incredibly detailed after I'd done some loose, rough sketches first. So I take time with some of these, and if that's something you feel would work for you, then take your time with the drawing as well. You don't have to finish something within the 2 hours, 1 hour, or even half an hour that you've dedicated to your sketch endeavor time. Again, I think as artists and as creatives, we do have the tendency to put blocks up for ourselves. And if we're going to do some sort of challenge like this, there's a lot of people out there that want to know the ground rules. Take it from me, there are no rules here. Just do what works for you. The main thing, the main aim of this is to put in the time. But again, if you miss the day, don't sweat it. Just strive to get back into it when you can. Now here with this drawing, you've seen me knock in some lighter tone using a paper stump. This was actually dipped into some graphite powder that I had preserved from shaving my pencil leads down. This I found was a really delicate way to gradually introduce tone and has been really handy for these snowy slopes that are in the shadow of this mountain. I then go back and remove some of this with that Tombow Mono Zero eraser. This allows for some precision removal of that graphite to make way for some lighter highlights down the road. Now I can add quite a lot of dark shadow by applying it with the broad side of this paper stump. And this is quite a quick and effective way for communicating these sharp and jagged rocks here in the foreground. I just love this subject. It's something that I'm really looking forward to painting. And again, I've been asked many things via email, and a message that I got regarding my subject material was, where do I find inspiration? Where do I get all of these subjects? Well, I'm really lucky that I live in such a beautiful part of the world, and many people don't have access to subject matter like what I have at my fingertips here in New Zealand. My recommendation is just find inspiration where you stand. Sometimes the most beautiful art can be made from the simplest of objects, and if you're really struggling for subject matter, try just starting with some fruit or some simple objects that you find around the house and make a detailed study of that. It's amazing what you can learn by just trying to appreciate and draw as faithfully as you can just simple objects. It doesn't have to be a rocky mountain stream or some weathered ruin. It can just be something simple. Or sit in front of a mirror and draw a portrait of yourself. I really believe that the quality of your art comes down to the quality of the questions that you're asking yourself. And if you're struggling for inspiration, just find any subject and just ask yourself the question with such intensity, but ask yourself, what's cool about this? What do I love about this? And just by asking that question, it will command an answer, and you'll create something pretty interesting. Here with this drawing, I've been trying to lay in that tone with a paper stump, and now I'm refining that image with some Staedtler pencils. And now I'm playing with Staedtler Black pencils. Now these are considerably darker than the Mars Lumograph that I have used and loved over the years. And I've got the equivalent of 2B, 4B, 6B, and 8B all in that Staedtler Black range. And I'm really enjoying that blackness that they bring to the deep shadows. And I've reserved this deeper, darker tone for the immediate foreground. Again, playing with that tonal contrast to bring these rocks all the way towards the viewer in the front. This allows a nice contrast with those tones in the background and thus opening up the scene and creating depth. Now what you're seeing here is an actual accumulation of all of these techniques that I've been learning over the last several weeks, where I was drawing horses, but the technique is still the same, starting off with some loose construction lines, nice and light, and then gradually building up that tone as I firm up the drawing. Now, right at the very end of the process, it's time to go in with that white charcoal pencil, and I just love what this can do for adding some highlights and an extra dimension. Of course, it helps using that Dreadnought gray paper, again made by Canford, and this here accepts that pencil really, really nicely. And the contrast between this really sharp, bright white and just that mid-tone gray is significant enough that it makes this mountain leap off the page. It helps adding this white pencil over the top of a clean area of paper, so I make sure that I rub those highlight areas back thoroughly before trying to apply these nice white highlights. Otherwise, that white from the pencil can be contaminated by the graphite and I can end up with a bit of a smudgy mess. Now, as I finish up this drawing, let me just share with you a few final thoughts here. If something sounds like a rule, then go ahead and break it. You have my permission. Sketch Endeavor is about using your time and trying to set a daily habit to draw. But again, if you miss that time, don't be hard on yourself. Just get back to it when you can. And remember, drawing can take on many different forms. You can draw with pencils, markers, pastels, even digitally, whatever you like. A consistent practice of drawing in any form is going to have a significant positive impact on your creative journey. Now, I really hope that you've enjoyed this episode of Sketch Endeavor, and if you did, then please hit that like button for me. If you want to come back for more and see more episodes of Sketch Endeavor, then make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification icon so you're notified when I upload another video. Now, if you want to be part of Sketch Endeavor and share some of your work with the other people who have joined this daily habit of drawing, then post your work to Instagram and use that hashtag SketchEndeavor. And I'm following that hashtag very, very closely. It's amazing to see this outpouring of creativity and commitment from all these people from around the world. It's super, super cool. Now, of course, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook, but most important, make sure you're subscribed through my website at andrewtischler.com. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll see you again soon.